everyone, and welcome to the Burgess podcast, the show where we are opening up conversations about life at sea, discussing hot topics within the industry, as well as offering mental health support and promoting well-being for crew. We also have our very own in-house recruitment team, so if you or anyone you know is currently looking for a new position, please send your updated CV to recruitment@burgessyachts.com or check out our recruitment posts on Instagram @Burgess Yacht Crew. Hello, my name is Lorena and welcome to the first in our series of bite-sized chats about mental health awareness. This week we are running our Mental Health Awareness Week, where we are talking about how our mental health fluctuates and the importance of having mechanisms in place to help us cope. Now, you may remember that we spoke with Iswan in December about the Yacht Crew Helpline and the support that they offer to yacht crew. But this week I want to talk about any concerns that captains or heads of department may have about dealing with cases of mental health illness on board a yacht, the impact it has on them, their fears, and any general questions they have about the support available to them. As part of our Awareness Week, we ran a survey on our managed yachts, where we asked captains to send us any questions or concerns they have about managing cases of mental health illness. We received a lot of questions covering a broad range of topics, including social media, leave, and insurance. So to help me answer these questions, I am really lucky to be joined by an extra special panel of guests who have a broad range of experiences in dealing with seafarer mental health illness. We have Burgess Fleet Crew Manager Lucy Med, co-founder of Seize the Mind, mental health first aid instructor and crew member Emma Ross. For the captain's viewpoint, we have Captain Michael Douglas. And finally, to talk us through the support offered by the yacht insurers, Charles Stephenson from Burgess Yachting Financial Services. Hi guys, thank you all so much for joining us this week. We have so many questions to get through. I think we should just jump straight in.
Okay, well, we have had quite a few questions about the definition of mental health, which seems like a good place to start. So, Emma, what does mental health illness mean? For example, if one of the questions that we've had is if someone tells me that they are stressed, does this mean that they are suffering from a mental health illness?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this. So getting straight into it, first of all, mental ill health can mean a number of things. What it generally is a condition that affects a person's ability to work, form relationships, go out, socialize, all of those kinds of things. So when we're talking about stress directly, if that's one of the questions that came through, I think it's really important to make sure we understand what stress is. Stress actually is a good thing for humans. Stress is a response or a reaction to an external stimulation. So we all have some kind of stress in our lives, and that's kind of something that we've evolved. Like evolution has given us these amazing abilities. Originally, it would have been fight, flight, or flee from, a snake or a lion in the grass. Now we have different stresses. We have emails popping through. We have people that need us. We have bosses that are calling us at 3:00 in the morning. And those are the kind of external stresses that come into our lives. That's something that we can't change. It doesn't mean that we have a mental illness if we are suffering from stress. It just means that we're dealing with the day-to-day life going on around us. When it starts to become problematic from a mental illness point of view is when that stress is internalized, when it becomes anxiety, and when anxiety starts to affect, like I said before, the definition, if it starts to affect your relationships, your health, physical health, or your working relationships, that's when it becomes an issue. And anxiety is basically those same kind of neural pathways being activated, those same hormones and chemicals being released into your body, but it's not from an actual perceived stress like an email coming through. It's now the thought of the email coming through, the thought of having to deal with something tomorrow, the thought of a call coming and not having the answers. And then your body starts to have all those same responses without any kind of stimulation. That's when we start to see problems emerging in a person or a crew member.
Yeah. So how would a captain know if someone is struggling with mental health issues? What are the signs they need to look out for?
Well, I mean, you do need to just look out for signs and symptoms. I think the biggest thing would be personality changes. Everyone deals with stress in a different way, and that's mostly to do with your upbringing. if you've come from a household that deals with stress and can have open communication and you felt loved and supported, you're going to have a very different response to a person that's grown up in a very stressful household. Maybe there was shouting, maybe there was arguments, maybe there was parents leaving. So just trying to figure out what the signs and symptoms you're seeing in the person. And that would probably, as a captain or head of department, you would start to see some changes in behavior. Someone that's, normally quiet, easy to get on with, maybe they've become a bit like they're going out a bit more, they're getting drunk a bit more, they're a bit more snappy and aggressive in the crew mess. Or it could be another way, maybe they've been a very sociable crew member, someone who's always keen for a laugh, someone who's always joining in, but now you find them withdrawing a little bit. They're not always at the crew meals, they don't sit around for crew lunches, they just go straight to their cabin. So it's more looking for signs and symptoms and spotting what's not right with the person. That would be an indicator that you would start just paying attention. And then if it became something that was constant, you would then try and think about having a conversation with that person and asking them. And, sometimes it's as easy as just asking the person, hey, what's going on? I've noticed, you're not sitting in the crew mess, or I noticed you're not coming out with us as much. Like, is there anything going on that you want to talk about? And just leave that open question in their lap and let them decide whether they want to chat to you about it.
Yeah. And I guess the important thing to remember is that everyone will be slightly different. It's not a strict list of signs that a person will show, because, like you said, some might become introverts, some might become extrovert. Just everyone will be different.
Yeah, and I mean, this only comes with experience and training, starting to understand what certain stresses are, starting to see what stress signatures look like or emotional snapping looks like. We're all going into this industry and doing the best as we can as fellow humans, looking after other fellow humans. So a little bit of training, a little bit of experience just gives you that kind of confidence to go into a conversation and maybe initiate a conversation with someone about what's going on in their life and what may be causing some stress. Because as a captain or as a head of department, you kind of want to get early intervention. You want to preempt a problem happening, and you can do that the same as you would with a physical illness by just asking the question. Like, if you saw someone, I've used this example before, but if you saw someone kind of bringing provisions down the side deck and they were limping, you'd say like, hey, what's going on with your leg? And you would be confident to have that conversation. And then you would be able to then start control. Like, does this person need help? Is this a 2-day thing that they just need rest and recuperation? Or am I going to have to look at getting them to shore, to a doctor, getting someone maybe to replace them? You kind of want to have that conversation. Like, early intervention is vital so that you can remain in control of the situation. We know that for physical health, it's just a little mental kind of leap to making that also apply to mental health and illness.
Yeah. So we've had quite a few questions that are along the same lines of, how do I deal with somebody who comes to me and says they're experiencing poor mental health?
Well, my first thing would just to be human, if you haven't had any training, just think about that person. Boats are incredible opportunities for travel, making friends, earning great money, but they're also really kind of unique in the experience that they give you. A lot of people are coming into the industry and they're thinking, they've seen mates doing it on Instagram and it's just going to be, sun salutations, sunset photos. They don't realize the isolation or the loneliness or the effect a crew dynamic can have on them. So I would just say, be human. If you've had no training, just reach out. Like, boats are made of people. They're not just made of fiberglass and steel. Start conversations with that person, ask where they've come from, ask if they've got anyone that can help them. If they're new and you don't know anything about them, just ask questions and try to see, does that person need help? Are you the person that can potentially help them? And what can you do if it's not someone that they don't want to talk to? Like, where can you point them? What resources, what toolkits do you have on board that could help them?
Yeah. Well, Mike, the next question you might be able to help with. So it's, what do I do if I think a crew member is struggling in their role? They seem stressed, not eating properly. Do I just send them home?
No, that's the nuclear option, and one thing we'd sort of avoid, because that can increase stress on the crew member themselves. They innate in bringing in almost a feeling of failure, maybe, that they've had to be sent home for this. So that's very much a nuclear option. I always think that also captain coming into a crew member's situation is is maybe not the best way to do it. It depends on the size of vessel, depends on how you deal with these situations. I'm on a larger vessel. I have, I've got 24 crew to deal with, and having heads of department, having their cabin mates be able to just sit down and go, right, we're noticing this happening. Chat down the cabin mates, anything going wrong in the cabin, chat to their best mate, see if their HOD or their senior crew members on board can start, just get you the information you require without them having to come up to see the captain or the captain come to see them, because that innately stresses a lot of crew members. And if you're already in a situation where you're not feeling happy and your mental health is beginning to fail you essentially, then the captain turning up is not going to be the best plan. It's going to be using the crew to support the crew member. I think that's the best way of sort of coming up with a plan, ensuring that the crew members being looked after and their cabin mates and their departments being looked after as well, so that it doesn't become a larger issue. And that's the one way to divert early. Make sure you put them in front of iSwan and the other tools that we have. Bringing in Burgess would be a great tool as well. There's some fabulous people there who can help out, and we'll be able to support not just the crew member but the captain as well to come to a great decision. It's such a wide-ranging area that there's no one answer that will provide perfect clarity. As Emma said, it's try to be human, try to understand what's got them from the happy, lovely crew member you had before to this person who's becoming more vulnerable, and see if you can walk that back from there.
Yeah, it's just opening up those conversations, having the support network in place on board, and I guess also shows the importance of having some mental health awareness training on board, even if it's not mental health first aid, but awareness training so that other crew can pick up the signs and know when someone needs help.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It is a massive thing to get more mental health training on board, because as Emma said, anybody can spot a sprain or a limp, but can you tell that your cabin mate started drinking 4 or 5 days a week now, and there's no sessions aren't just 1 or 2 beers, they're now midnight every night or 2 a.m. every night, and that's what coping mechanism are they using to try to help themselves that's going to be unhealthy?
Yeah. Lucy, another specific question we've been asked. If a crew member is sent home to recuperate, I am worried about how long they will be gone for. So I know that's not really a question, but do you have any guidance for captains on the length of time a seafarer might be off with mental health issues?
So it's impossible to judge. I mean, firstly, I'd like to say it's not always necessary to send somebody home. That shouldn't be the knee-jerk reaction. What you can look at, and what we've tried to encourage before, it's not for us to diagnose these people. It's important to encourage discussion, maybe get them to see a medical practitioner, somebody who can certainly make a more accurate diagnosis, somebody who is medically professionally qualified to do that. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit more in the insurance section that we're going to cover later. But insofar as then assessing whether there is a need to send that person home, what is the triggers, what's caused this? Is it exhaustion, in which case probably letting them go home for some rest and recuperation, organise some holiday, that would be ideal, and then just bring them back on board when they're ready to come back. Maybe, give them a couple of weeks off, a month off, whatever is needed, just to get and rebalance themselves from their physical point of view. Or insofar as if it's just purely some sort of trigger, we live in a really tight-knit community when we're on board the yacht, and perhaps you've had a failed relationship, which will be very sad and is making you very blue. And maybe just some time off, a couple of days off will help that person. But if it is a fully diagnosed mental health disorder, then yes, the best thing to do is to repatriate the crew member and allow them the time and available resources to get them mentally well again. How long that takes is how long that takes, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. And we take the lead from the medical practitioners that the person's seeing, and we talk to them, and we encourage the captain or somebody on board to stay in touch with them to establish, what are the time frames. Again, it'll start to become clear what the time frames are, if it's just a short-term blip, or if it's maybe a longer term issue. Then time will tell. But you just need to have open communication with that person about when they're going to be physically ready to get back to work.
Lorena, if I may interject, sorry, it's Charles here. I think slightly on the phrasing of that question gives the impression it's a hindrance to a captain that this is happening. I think they are getting more and more aware. This is an illness like any other illness. And so going home until you're better is a simple answer. But also by having the mindset of this being not a normal illness and not wanting to address it. The intervention, and we'll discuss it later on in the insurance section specifically, but it's a phone call to a psychiatrist, and then it's in treatment to a psychiatrist, and then it's chemical treatment, and then it's full on. And the longer you leave it with this mindset, I don't want them to go, they might not come back, the greater the intervention needed, and therefore the longer they'll be away. So I think the consciousness must be, let's get this diagnosed and treated as soon as I'm aware of it. And that will shorten the time it takes for them to come back as a side issue.
I think that's a really good point. I mean, I think we have a lot of the stigma attached to mental health is that, and especially in yachts, people don't tend to get sick on boats and then come back. Even if you get pregnant, it's kind of a one-door thing. Like, you're pregnant, you're out, you don't really come back. So that stigma and that discrimination we have for illness, and this applies to physical illness as well as mental health illness. So trying to kind of make people aware, talk about it, raise awareness, kind of destigmatize mental illness, as Charles just said, it's something that you can recover from with the right supports, with the right medication, with the right treatment, whatever it is, in the same way as you would be able to with a sprain or with a broken arm. It's just how serious is the illness and how long will it have to take to get that person back. But having that understanding that, there is you can come back onto the boat and you can be a functioning, brilliant, well-rounded crew member, having got the treatment you needed from it, is a huge hurdle we have to face in the industry, individually and collectively.
Thank you, Emma, and thank you everyone for such a great start to the series. Join us in our next episode where we answer more of your questions about dealing with mental health illness. We would love for you to subscribe to our podcast so that you can keep up to date with our latest releases. Also, don't forget to check out our Instagram page at Burgess Yacht Crew, where we will be sharing some more tips on managing poor mental health. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.